Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Royal Nerd Gaming. I am your host, the Royal Nerd, and today, we're doing something a little different than usual. Instead of the regular gameplay video, I wanted to do a discussion video, because there was something, or should I say, someone in Apex Legends that I wanted to talk about before Season 8 drops. That's right, it's Mirage. Now, Mirage is my favorite legend, although that probably has something to do with how much I love his voice actor, Roger Craig Smith, voice of other notable characters like Kyle Crane, Ezio Auditore, and Sonic the Hedgehog. But that's besides the point. Mirage is my favorite. I've played him more than any other character, and I've put almost 1,500 hours into Apex, and I can say, with some certainty, that Mirage is a mediocre legend, decent at best. Now, I'm sure there are those of you out there who are excellent with Mirage and his kit. I'd like to think that I'm pretty good with him myself. He is definitely more bamboozling than he once was, but I don't think I'm wrong to say that most experienced players don't have too much trouble knowing what is a hologram and what isn't. I've even heard some streamers say that they are never fooled by Mirage's holograms anymore. That's a problem. Mirage is a character designed to trick, to fool, to bamboozle. I'm not saying Mirage is useless, just that he needs some attention, maybe some buffs or reworks to his kit. I mean, there's a reason that he ends up near the bottom of most people's tier lists. Although, to be fair, I've seen some people put him in like A tier. So why the disparity? Well, let's take a look at Mirage's abilities, and I'll tell you how I think they could be reworked/buffed to make him more effective at bamboozling. And make sure you stick around until the end, because the last suggestion I have for him is the biggest and most interesting one, I think. First off, Mirage's passive ability, Now You See Me. Automatically cloak when using respawn beacons and reviving teammates. This is the evolution of Encore, which used to be Mirage's passive, where he would drop a decoy and cloak for 5 seconds when knocked down. He still does that, but now he has that other stuff too. The reason that Encore wasn't a very good passive was because you had to die for it to be useful, and, newsflash, the goal of the game is to be the last one not to die. So, yeah, Now You See Me is a great expansion from Encore, and it's honestly this ability that people consider the most when gauging Mirage's usefulness. Being invisible to revive is kinda awesome, but it's debatable whether it's more useful than, say, Lifeline's revive shield, or Gibraltar's dome shield revive that actually offer some cover. So when it comes to changing the ability, I think it's just a matter of expanding what it can do. For example, maybe Mirage could get extended cloaking when self-reviving. When he gets knocked down, yes, he still drops the decoy and cloaks for 5 seconds, but if he has a gold self-revive shield, maybe he could get more cloaking once he starts to use it. The self-revive is already hard to use since it takes so long. Having a legend who had an advantage while using it might give it more purpose in day-to-day gameplay. You know how when you find a gold backpack, you give it to a Gibraltar or a Lifeline? Mirage could be the guy who gets gold revive shields. I mean, he's already invisible when reviving his teammates. Why not when reviving himself? Next, Mirage is tactical. The bread and butter of being Mirage, Psych Out. You send out a holographic decoy to confuse the enemy, and now you can control the decoy. That was a big change a few seasons back that added some very cool new options to Mirage's tactical. It catches the eye, he can control it, it marks the enemy if they shoot it, and then it even mocks them to rub salt in the wound. All of that is great. It would be nice if Mirage's holos also looked like they were shooting, but there's already a lot of tracers flying around the screen. But even if they had, fake muzzle flare, that would work towards making the holograms more convincing. Aside from that, personally, I think it would be nice if Mirage had 2 charges of his hologram that he could send out for extra bamboozling, because the recharge on Mirage's hologram is long enough that if you see one Mirage, and you shoot it, and it's a hologram, the next one you see is probably real. A second hologram would alleviate this, because you could send a hologram, then send another, then make your move, or you could send one, then move, and leave one where you left. People would know that he could send out 2 holograms, but it would be harder to know which one is the real Mirage. The only other change I would like to see here is how the control over the decoys works, and honestly, it's mostly preference. I'm going to try my best to explain this in the least confusing way possible, because it has a lot to do with directions. When I control a decoy, I usually have it right next to me, so that it's not clear which one of us is real. This would be easier to do if the decoy actually oriented to me when I take control of it. For example, if I send the decoy west, and then look to the north before taking control of it, it will still be facing west, and will mimic my movements according to its orientation. By that I mean, in this example, if I were to strafe right, or to my east, it would strafe north, which would be right from its perspective. I would love that if I took over a hologram, it just adjusted to whichever way I'm looking. That way I could run into battle with the hologram right next to me, just for that extra layer of confusion, without worrying that the angle was slightly off and it had readjusted into a rock nearby, leaving me completely exposed. Finally, we come to Mirage's ultimate, Life of the Party. Now, Life of the Party is a very cool ability, and a pleasant one to look at, so you can properly appreciate those skins you spent so much money on. Mirage deploys a team of controllable decoys to distract enemies. Life of the Party is the new version of Vanishing Act, where Mirage would drop a circle of stationary holograms and turn invisible. And Life of the Party is better, because with Vanishing Act, people would know that none of the holograms were Mirage, and would immediately start hunting for the real one the minute he decloaked. Life of the Party is definitely more bamboozling, seeing as how the holograms mimic you and such, and gives you the chance to either engage in that confusion, or use the opportunity to retreat. The problem is that it still isn't that hard to determine which Mirage is real, especially in high-level play. So there are a few changes that I think could be made to Mirage's ultimate. Change number 1. The decoy should deploy faster. When Mirage activates his ulti, he cloaks briefly, and then gets mixed in with the crowd of holograms. But people can successfully track Mirage's movements through the bamboozle, and shoot him before the holos are even on the ground. And when you have an ability like this that is often used specifically to escape sticky situations, speed is key. Change number 2 is one that I'm not totally sold on, but think could be made very cool with some work. We know that Mirage can make holograms of more than himself, right? We see it every time he drops into the map. Well, what if he could do that more often? One of the reasons I've seen multiple people say that Mirage is a lower tier legend is that he doesn't have much team play value. Aside from his invisible revive, the rest of his abilities are designed to make him harder to identify, and to protect only him. But what if that weren't the case? What if Mirage's ulti had a separate feature where if he were in close proximity to a teammate, his ultimate actually sent out a mix of holograms of him and his team? Now, the holograms would still only mimic Mirage's movements. It is, after all, his ability. But this would really be interesting because it would actually be a disadvantage to Mirage, but more beneficial to his team. There would be less holograms of Mirage, so it would be easier to determine which one was real, but his teammates would also get some cover in the mix of holograms and maybe have a chance to slip away. Imagine your teammate is in a sticky situation, and you, as Mirage, jump down onto them and crap out your circle of holograms, except they are holograms of you and your teammate to give them some more cover. Take this clip, for example, where I activated my ulti and executed this Horizons teammate right next to her. She couldn't figure out where I was. That's a great example of how good Mirage's ultimate can be. But my teammate, who was also in this mess, got picked off immediately. With this change, sure, your teammate could still get shot, they could still be separated from the holograms, but that extra little bit of confusion could give Mirage way more team play value. He would have to think about when to drop his ulti, because it would no longer just be a tool for him, but to help his teammates too. Finally, change 3. This is the big one, and it's definitely more drastic than the others. I think that the abilities of Life of the Party and the old Vanishing Act should be combined. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, I think Mirage should be allowed to choose between the ultimates in the same way that his tactical has a variable function, where just tapping the tactical button sends out a hologram, but holding it sends out a hologram that you control. In regards to the ultimate, if you just press and release the button, Mirage cloaks briefly and joins the circle of holograms as he does currently. No change there. However, if you hold the ultimate button, what if Mirage remained cloaked, and stays that way for 5 seconds, while still sending out a ring of holograms that mimic him? That way people wouldn't be sure if the real Mirage was still dancing around in front of them, or cloaked away in hiding. They'd have to work extra hard to find the real Mirage, rather than knowing that he's definitely one of the holograms in front of them, like they do now. I admit that this change could prove to be very powerful, but it just feels like Mirage is too easy to pick out of the crowd at the moment. He's supposed to be the best at bamboozling, not just average at it. Perhaps it could be balanced by making his ultimate recharge a little slower, since it comes back so fast, or something along those lines. But either way, this is the biggest change to Mirage's kit that I think could make him so much more effective at bamboozling. Anyway, there it is, my first ever discussion video where I just lay out my thoughts for you guys. What do you think of videos like this? Would you like more in this format? Let me know in the comments, and if you liked the video, don't forget to subscribe and come back for more, and if you do, I'll see you then. Thanks for watching, and take care, everybody. Farewell.